Thanks for joining in. Nick Crozier with Crozier Realty. We run a team out of Etobicoke and Mississauga. We're jumping in right away here. We got a new Bill 60 that just passed in the Ford government in Ontario here. This will enact into law to coming in. So what you need to know if you're a tenant or a landlord, I'm going to explain exactly what the bill talks about. There's 10 key changes that are major changes that will affect everybody, landlord or tenant. And the main things which I'm going to cover first, the first 5 or so are really tenant awareness and landlord awareness. So number one, we'll jump right in, is the N4 period. So if you didn't pay your rent on the first of the month or whatever it might have been, normally the landlord had to wait 14 days to file into the landlord board to get a court date for eviction. Now that has been reduced to 7. This is supposed to imply faster application time so they can reduce unpaid rent risk. Number 2, you have the appeal window. So before, there was 30 days to request a review by the LTB on their decision. Now the new rule is 15 days. So it just means less uncertainty, quicker time to do it. So again, do I think either of those first 2 things are going to make a major impact? The first one, yes, it means landlords are able to send for eviction a lot sooner, so that person that might be paying 5 days or a week late almost every month, that will affect them. But again, little things, they still have to get a court date. So keep that in mind with all of these things. As much as things are sped up or not, you still need the court date. So if the courts are still backed up and there's not enough staffing in there, it's not going to change much of the issues right now. Number 3, the restrictions on the raising new issues. So before, you were able to, if your landlord was neglecting any sort of repairs, harassment, any issues that were not related to rent, are no longer allowed to be brought up during a non-payment period, or the tenant has to give 7 days notice before bringing this up on the hearing date, and 50% of the rent arrears have to be paid before the hearing for any of this to remain valid. Purpose behind this is so that they can remain focused with fewer delays in terms of what the hearing is about. Now, this one does affect tenants. This is probably the main one. And this is if a landlord wants to move into their own unit or a family member, they used to have to pay 1 month's compensation, and it was about a 60-day notice if the tenant was on a month-to-month. Now, the compensation is going to be waived if it's 120-day notice is given. So pretty much 4 months notice is given. They no longer have to pay you to leave. They do get their property back if you're on month-to-month, or if it's at the end of the term, then the term will end. Now, the persistent late payment. So someone who's consistently paying you late, this is going to be, before it was just a very vague, you can file, but it was up to the adjudicator to decide what's going to happen with it. The new rule now is they're going to come through some sort of regulation, or there's going to be some sort of defined formality that says if you've paid late X amount of times or for X amount of dollars, they're basically defining exactly what that means of persistent late payments. So the last one, the 6th one here, is the landlord's ability to review or delay orders. So before, they could review, postpone, or set aside orders with broad discretion. The new rule now is that there will be a restriction on how and when orders can be reviewed. I've seen this happen. I've had it with the clients in situations where we got an order, and then we were waiting on an order. Court date happened, but it took over 60 days to even give us any sort of regulation, any sort of notice or order. So, in doing so, this is going to leave a lot of ambiguity to just in general the tenant or the landlord in terms of what's happening with the case. So hopefully that just speeds up again. The whole purpose of this whole thing is to speed up processes. Number 7, this is an interesting one. The old rule is this is going to be increased publication of landlord board decisions. So there is what's called Open Room right now, which is a private run website, which anyone who has a landlord or tenant board order or court order of somebody can post it on here. And if you're a landlord and you're doing reference checks, you can look that person up. Not everybody knows about it. Not everybody puts everything on there. What they're basically saying now is there's going to be a broader publication of decisions and orders, and it's more of like an open room. So now the public will actually be able to see if you've been brought to court or not. Now the province is going to prescribe notice eviction forms. So there's going to be a standard form that's going to be controlled largely by the LTB, was the old rule. Now the province is going to bring in the content via regulation. More standardized forms that are going to come through. Again, some of these things are not clear exactly what it's going to happen or what it's going to mean, but that's what they're planning to do. So second last one here is enhanced enforcement resources. So common delays that you find even when you get the order is you can't get a sheriff there to kick the person out if they haven't paid. So what they're saying now is they're going to increase the resources to speed up the enforcement. So apparently they're going to hire more people. We'll see what happens again. And then the last one here is the security of tenant lease expiry. So this was the one that I feel like personally was going to have the massive effect on the whole tenancy and renting in Ontario. Currently, the old rule is that it's indefinite leases. So when your lease ends or your term ends, it automatically goes month to month. Unless there's a valid termination decision. So the new rule, or the proposed new rule that they were trying to put in, was that they were going to say basically that every single time the tenancy ends, a new tenancy has to be put into place. Meaning your lease is going to expire in 60 days. There has to be a decision to renew it or not renew it. And if you're not going to renew it, then you must vacate the premises. That was shot down, so it was not part of what Bill 60 is about. If you're asking me of anything that would have affected the tenants the most, is that. So if you are going to talk about being able to just basically end leases, that will stop that person who's getting rent that is really cheap, that's been there for 10, 15 years. This is basically going to change all of that. So love to hear your opinions on it. I think it's movements in the right direction. Do I really think that this is going to make a lot of change? Not really, to be honest with you. You might have faster eviction processes if the landlord board can handle it. I think the biggest problem here that no one's really still talking about is just the actual landlord board itself. It's not run very efficiently. They're still low on numbers. There's massive court cases and backups. So I think until you really get to the heart and center of the problem, which is the actual board itself, the processes and how things are run, I don't think a lot of this kind of stuff affects too much. It does, it's different. Tenants aren't going to get that extra month now that the owner wants the property back. I could see both sides of that token and that side there. Again, it's brand new, just came out. We'll be very interested to see what comes of it, if this does actually make the landlord board more efficient or if it doesn't. Curious to know your opinions and thoughts on it. Any more questions, or if you are a landlord and you're trying to figure out exactly what to do or maneuver in between, we've helped many landlords, whether it be sell their property, maneuver through the landlord board, or if you're a tenant just curious on what's going on, we do place a lot of tenants too. We have a full property management system as well, where we place over 100 people a year. So again, both sides of the story, very neutral on it here. As most of the stuff that rolls out, we'll see what happens.